this last year. We were researching abortion. And did you know that in the state of New York City, for every black child that's born, one is aborted and some? That's genocide, isn't it? I mean, literally wiping out an entire ethnicity of people. When I think about it, I'm telling you, my skin's crawling right now just thinking about how evil that is.
Abortion is the #1 killer in the black community, leading more and more African American churches to speak out and take a stand for life.
Abortion is black genocide. What happens to a mind of a person and the moral fabric of a nation that can accept the aborting of a child without a pang of conscience?
In many black communities, for every child actually born, 3 others are aborted, more than double the rate among whites. Dr. Clennard Childress, founder of blackgenocide.org, says the consequences of those figures will eventually end up destroying a whole race of Americans.
African Americans here in this country are the only ethnic group in any place on the globe that's not replacing themselves. This is genocide.
For every child that's born, one's killed, one's aborted.
Dr. Childress points out this should come as no surprise, considering that black Americans were long ago targets of the abortion industry. In the early 20th century, Margaret Sanger founded Planned Parenthood, an organization that later became the nation's largest abortion provider. Sanger encouraged abortion and sterilization to limit the size of black families. Childress says she also used the unaware black minister to further her agenda.
And that's just evil. And it's like the new morality today, isn't it? Like it's the platform, like, we're good people, let's kill babies.
Do you believe there is such a thing as sin?
Well, I think the greatest sin in the world is bringing children into the world that have disease from their parents, that have no chance in the world to be a human being, practically. Delinquents, prisoners, all sorts of things just marked when they're born. That, to me, is the greatest sin.
Margaret Sanger, the founding mother, so to speak, of Planned Parenthood, was a devout racist. And in this age of political correctness, if a historian who isn't even for the life movement and who is pro-choice, right, Ms. Greenleaf, says, indeed, Margaret Sanger is a racist, then why are we giving out the Margaret Sanger Award? Why is Planned Parenthood insisting that her bust stay in the Portrait Gallery at our Smithsonian? Those are taxpayer dollars going to support that. And in the age, once again, of political correctness and racial sensitivity, why are you upholding a devout racist as a role model for other women and other politicians?
It's shocking.
Abortion is so much a part of our world culture. What certain groups are targeted by the abortion industry?
Definitely the African American community. I think that it's a travesty, and it's really devastating our community. It's gotten to the point where in inner cities, especially where the Planned Parenthood and the abortion facilities are, they set up camp there, where abortion is up to 50% in most cities. And in New York City, we just heard 60% of all abortions are performed on black women.
Did Sanger target others as well?
Yeah, she didn't just target black people. She also targeted, for instance, Southern Europeans, the darker Europeans. They were flooding into America, and she was saying maybe we have to keep their numbers down. Well, not maybe. She thought their numbers should be kept down. And I haven't seen the direct sources on this, but I think she even had a problem with fundamentalist Christians. So,
I mean, it's like it's an entire party platform, isn't it? Today, and friend, say, Pastor, again, that's not political. We're talking about lives. And it's oppressive, and it's one of those things that is so bad. It's like you realize, man, and the law allows it, and it just seems like that is the norm, and that's what everybody's thinking, and it's just evil. And this world needs some judging, don't they? And evil needs some condemning, doesn't it? And so here's national Israel. Here's Nicodemus, who's an Israelite, and he's under the oppression of the Roman Empire. And the Roman government has conquered the world, and they're forcing their way of life on people, and very unbending, very unmoving about it. And so Nicodemus thinks Jesus came to become a king, and he's going to destroy the Romans, and he's going to destroy bad people, and that's what he came for. And Jesus said, "I came not to condemn the world."
First, it's not hyperbole. It's not a radical rant from a right-wing reverend. It is a sociological fact. 52% of all African-American pregnancies end in abortion, 1,786 a day. And since 1973, over 20 million African Americans have been killed by abortion alone. So it is not anything to be used lightly. It is a sociological fact, and it's happening on our watch, and I'm grieved over that. They need to know that they've been lied to, and they need to know that this is a great deception that's being played out, and unquestionably they need to know that it's going to affect them for the rest of their lives. Institutions like Planned Parenthood are targeting African Americans, women, as well as men who are a part of the problem also. But when you have a situation where it's going to affect your children later on, it's going to affect your ability to have children, it's going to affect your psychological view, indeed, on life itself. 85% of women who have abortions have some type of psychological malady. And so there's a lot of pain in our pews, and the clergy need to step up and recognize those women are in your pews. You need to shepherd them and sound the alarm of what's happening at the rate of 1,786 a day.
And you're doing that as pastor.
Yes, it has to be.
Right.
Do you think most people know the history of Planned Parenthood, especially right now, lawmakers who are debating whether the government should use our tax dollars to defund it?
Not only do most people not know the history at all, they don't even know what Planned Parenthood is doing today. This fact that they do more abortions than anybody else in America. In fact, if Planned Parenthood was a country, it would have the 6th highest rate of abortions in the entire world. Most Americans don't know that Planned Parenthood does abortion. So that's the problem here, this absolute lack of knowledge. Most people just think that they're giving women like reproductive health advice and contraceptives, things like that. And what's interesting, there's so many places, 10 times more the number of clinics that are doing these things than Planned Parenthood. If Planned Parenthood disappeared tomorrow, women's health, reproductive health, would be totally taken care of, except for maybe this question of abortions.
In 1973, our Supreme Court said the word person does not include the unborn. That, people think, justified abortion. There have now been 45 million babies aborted in America. 1 billion worldwide. Satan's plan, reduce the population. Boy, that'll do it.
The population question is a great concern today.
We're going to talk about the notorious Planned Parenthood. You're being told to go to Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood has a plan for you, especially you young ladies. Planned Parenthood is taking it far beyond what the Ku Klux Klan ever thought they could possibly take it.
This evolution theory is the foundation philosophy for humanism. Humanism is the idea that man is God. After all, there is no God out there, so we must be God. The Bible says they did not like to retain God in their knowledge. God gave them over to a reprobate mind. Do humanists believe in a supreme being? Emphatically, yes. That supreme being is man. Humanists have no knowledge of any being more supreme. The turning point in history will be the moment that man becomes aware that the only God of man is man himself.
Professor Bonner says the world is not using 1 billion acres of potential agricultural land, and he adds that if this land were used and present agricultural land were improved, the entire world could be fed adequately, even if the population increased by 1/3 in the next 50 years.
Oh, Mr. Wallace, you hear so many fantastic things of what can happen, what may happen.
She was all for eugenics, and you know, the Nazis used her stuff to fashion their programs. And also, she talked to the KKK. She was at one of their rallies and was rousingly cheered. So this woman is sort of a nightmare for people who are defending Planned Parenthood. They really don't want you to know much about Margaret Sanger's past.
When talking with the African American community, we have to recognize that this is a segment of our community whose rights are being denied. It's the same platform Martin Luther King took. We are not holding these truths to be self-evident, that all mankind was created equal, endowed by the Creator, not mom or dad, but God, to certain inalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit. There is over 20 million African Americans and over 50 or 60 million since 1973 that were denied the right, the access to the American dream. That's a great social injustice and something that the church should be grieving over.
Bishop Daniel Robertson of Richmond's Mount Gilead Baptist Church says black pastors have a responsibility to their communities to do more.
We really need to just, make a statement to the community that we believe the Bible, thou shalt not kill.
But Robertson's church does more than just preach against abortion. For one, they encourage their members to consider adopting these unplanned children.
We go to the abortion clinics and ask people, there are other alternatives. We try to educate people and let them know you don't have to do this. And so we do have that ongoing ministry. And then because our doors are open and we preach the message of Jesus Christ, we do try to give people hope.
Jesus didn't come to condemn the world. The world's already condemned. The world's already condemned. Condemnation doesn't change anything. The condemnation is already the reality. The Bible says in verse 17, God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. Verse 18, he that believeth on him is not condemned. But notice the next verse, or the next part, the next phrase, but he that believeth not is condemned already, because he hath not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God. What does it take for a person to be condemned by God? What's required for a person to come under condemnation? And the answer is absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So when the world became condemned? When the first man sinned.
Yes.
That's when the world became condemned.
What's interesting to me is this solid wall of opposition as this defunding of Planned Parenthood comes up. And I kind of want to talk about that philosophy, why this is. Because you would think as evidence piles up, people would be going, maybe I need to change my mind on this. But I think what we're seeing is that as the conscience has been seared over the decades, people have to prevent cognitive dissonance in the brain, they have to say, well, I'm right about this because maybe this isn't really a life, or this is different than the life of people after they're born, out of the womb. So I think what you're seeing is people trying, they have to stay opposed to it, because what happens in their own minds, what happens in their own hearts if they say, this is not really, this is a baby, this is indeed a life, this is someone just like me, this is just like my children.
At which point should you be able to kill this baby? Okay, we're going to play a game called When Should You Be Able to Kill This Baby? Because I've been told by people like Hillary Clinton that you're able to kill this baby all the way up to the very end, right? 32 to 30 weeks. Right? And that's when the baby is fully formed. It can be born alive. It is a fully formed human being. I've watched 2 of them come out of my wife. These are human beings. These are not balls of tissue. These are not clusters of cells. And I'm sick of being told that it's just an abortion. I don't like the euphemisms. It's not a termination of a pregnancy. It's a termination of a human life. Okay, it's a murder of a human being when you're talking about these babies. And this idea that you get to choose that. Look, you got to choose a lot of things in life. You don't get to choose another human being's death. That's not something you get to choose. So, when is it okay to kill this? When is it okay to kill this? Is it okay to kill this thing at week 14? When the heart is pumping several quarts of blood through the body every day? How about week 15, when the baby has an adult's taste buds? How about month 4, when the bone marrow is beginning to form? How about that? Or how about weeks 9 and 10, when the baby's teeth are already beginning to form, its fingernails are already beginning to develop? We're talking about 2 months old, right? The baby can turn the head and frown. The baby can hiccup. Is that okay to kill? How about week 4? By the end of the week 4, the kid is already 10,000 times larger than the fertilized eggs was. There's already the beginnings of eyes and legs and hands. There are already brain waves detectable. Mouth and lips are present. Fingernails are forming. How about week 3? By the end of the 3rd week, the kid's backbone and spinal column and nervous system are forming. The liver and kidneys and intestines are beginning to take shape. How about day 22? The heart's already beating with the child's blood, which may be of a different blood type than the mother. So where in here exactly do you think it's okay to murder that kid because you have a personal convenience issue?
What do you have to do in order to feel condemnation?
As far as the morality of abortion does not change based on need, right? So the fact that she's poor and needs an abortion doesn't change whether she's rich and needs an abortion or poor, because the abortion argument really comes down to, do you think this is a life or not? If you don't think it's a life, you can do whatever you want with it. If you think it's a life, you can't do anything with it.
The Bible says that Satan transforms himself into an angel of light. He doesn't walk around in a red suit with a pitchfork advertising who he is. He works in very deceptive manners to confuse people, and it almost comes across something that will be good.
The most basic right is the right to life. So why should any child be killed by abortion?
Are you take care of them? Adopt them?
Are you
Feed
taking?
them?
Can you take care of all the poor?
No. But see, that's the thing.
So do the poor deserve to live?
Of course they do, if they're already born.
So why are you depriving the unborn of their lives? If you're in favor of taking care of the poor that are alive, why would you want to kill those who might be poor?
If I'm pregnant and I don't want to have a kid, I'm not going to have the kid.
But you know what? That's a result of sin. It says it is out of the wickedness of the heart that we murder, that we hate. And so it's undeniable that it is a human life. It's not a clump of cells. It's actually a human organism. Organisms are different than tissues, and they're different than organs.
Yeah.
And
That's
so.
not a person.
What do you have to do in order to feel condemned? What do you have to do in order to become a sinner? Absolutely nothing. It's already done, already taken care of. Jesus said, I didn't come to condemn anybody. The world's already taken care of that. It's already condemned.
Abortion, up until the moment it leaves the birth canal, is acceptable.
Sure.
9 months?
Sure.
8 months?
Sure.
You don't believe that's a life?
No.
My friend, I have to say this. You may not like to think this about God, but God's already condemned the world. Condemnation has already come. In other words, nobody anywhere is getting away with or will get away with anything because God's already judged it.
So I think that's why you're seeing such a solid wall of opposition, and I think that's going to be an intensely hard thing to crack. So watch for that. Watch to just see how does this wall of solid pro-choice opposition get even firmer as more and more of these videos come out. Where you would think it would crack the wall, instead I bet the wall gets higher and higher.
I'm a woman of this world. You're women of this world. You have no place to say God about nothing. Go the home. Go
They're
the home.
murder down the street, ma'am.
Whatever.
I need to speak up for them. Ma'am, please.
Go home. Go the home. You have no right to do this. None whatsoever. Your freedom of speech be damned. Go the home.
If this doesn't move the country to defund Planned Parenthood, what would?
You know what's going to happen to evildoers, to the wicked? Will it satisfy you to know what's going to happen to the wicked, to the evildoer? They're going to burn a lake of fire forever. Is that enough? Condemnation for you? Is that enough? Think of the worst person in the world and think of what God's judgment for them already is. In other words, it's not like God's going to decide later on what's going to happen. They're already condemned.
Do you know why hell was created? Matthew chapter 25, verse number 41, I think it is. The Bible says hell was created not for mankind, but for the devil and his demons. When the devil is cast into hell in Revelation chapter 20, right before the great white throne judgment, okay? And the demons are cast into hell. They're cast into hell there forever to be tormented. The flames of hell are there, and they were designed to contain the devil and the fallen angels that have fallen him, who are referred to as demons. Hell is not their home. Hell is their eternal resting place of damnation. It is where they will be judged for all of eternity, where they will be separated from God. Okay? This is not a pleasant place. There's no partying in hell. There's no booze in hell. There's no anything that provides pleasure in hell. There's no love in hell. It's just torment in hell. But the demons won't be tormenting us there. The fires of hell will be tormenting us in hell, and it will be according to God's judgment upon your life for the things that you've done in your life. That's what the Bible teaches about them.
The world's already condemned. Jesus didn't come to condemn the world. He came to save the world from condemnation. That's the good news, isn't it? You say, Pastor, how could God be good and condemn anything? Well, how could you be good and condemn God? So many people, well, how could God send anyone to hell? That's so terrible. You ever seen what people do? Mm-hmm. Has God ever done anything evil like people do? No.
Would you ever hurt your baby?
No. No.
Why not?
Because I hurt him. He's little.
Would you ever hurt your baby?
No.
Why not?
Because it's a baby.
Why is it a bad thing to kill a baby?
Because you're killing somebody.
Would you ever kill your
baby? No. What if you're too busy to take care of them? I still want to do it.
Does anyone have a choice about their condemnation? Everyone has a choice. Did you notice the vernacular? Did you notice the wording? Jesus said, I came not to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. Who does God want to be free from condemnation?
The world.
Every person alive. Every person alive. Now, do you tell me that? Is that an evil God that wants every person to be free from condemnation? He's not evil, is he? God's good. And Jesus here is talking about his own death on the cross. He's talking about God judging him in the place of you and in the place of me, so that we can know that we're saved.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved.